All right, shalom aleichem rabotai. Welcome to our usually Wednesday, only today Tuesday class on Yalkut Yosef. Thank you again, everybody, for the flexibility. Appreciate it. Bezat Hashem. And I see this morning Johnny is joining us as well. Buchim habayim, Johnny. All right. So we've been spending the last two classes on Yalkut Muktzeh, and we're gonna finish. You never finish with Muktzeh because no matter where you are in Shabbat, that's the thing that's gonna repeat itself. But I want to touch a little bit, one topic that I brought up last time, and we learned it already. It's about cutting a bag of milk with scissors. And we said that that would be allowed because really the scissors are klisha melachto leisu, an item, a vessel that is used for something that is forbidden. However, if we need it for itself, for example, for cutting up a bag of milk, then we could use it. But I want to touch a different question that comes up when you do that. You had a bag of milk, and by cutting it nicely, you have now created a kli. You created a vessel on Shabbat. Now there's like a nice opening where you could pour the milk in and out. Is that a problem? Is it considered that you created a kli? You created a vessel on Shabbat? If it is, then that would be a problem. A similar case, this is a very common topic that is brought up in Chot Shabbat. Opening, opening cans on Shabbat, can of pickles. You had something closed that could not be used as a vessel. Once I open it, now it's like a kind of a cup. So I created something. Halachically, did I create something or not? So the answer is that since these things are going to be thrown out, we don't consider them an actual kli because it's just there to use for the food that is in it. And once the food is out, we're never going to use the can. So theoretically, if you know that when you're opening the can, your intention is to keep on using it later on as a cup, that would be forbidden on Shabbat because you decided to turn it into actual kli. But if I know that I'm throwing it out, that's why some people even make a hole in the can, they ruin it just to show that, we're never really going to use this or whatever. You don't have to do that. But the idea is like that. If it's something that I'm not keeping, even though I made a kli out of it, it's not a real kli. It's meant to protect the food and later on it's thrown out. So that would not be a problem. Now, we also mentioned that anything that an animal can eat, not just a human being, but an animal, is not muktzeh. Because at the end of the day, the criteria for a muktzeh is either something that is not a kli, not a vessel, let's say a fork, knife, whatever it is, and it's also not food. Food is not just for people, but for animals as well. Right? So he touches the topic of the peels of let's say nuts. You peeled nuts now and it's on a table, right? So they're not worthy of an animal, right? So if they're not worthy of an animal, they should be muktzeh. No animal will eat that. It's not a kli, it's not food. The truth of the matter is it is muktzeh, but it's on our table. So what do we do, right? So there is a loophole, and we've touched this. Just want to remind you, this is the order of the Yalkut Yosef. He says that there's also another thing that you could use, which is called davar ma'us, something that in your eyes is disgusted by. You would be allowed to remove it from the table. So even though the peels are muktzeh, but something that because it disgusts you, it bothers the atmosphere of Shabbat, then you will be allowed to move it. And even he says you could do it through a knife, but if you're really disgusted by it, you could even lift it up with your hands if it's not going with a knife. So that's another topic regarding muktzeh. Now, when I say that anything that an animal can eat is not muktzeh, the Yalkut Yosef specifies that it's stuff that the animal can eat beheter, with permission. What do I mean? What is food, but the animal has no permission to eat on Shabbat? Can anybody think of something that even though it's food, the animal is not allowed to eat it on Shabbat? So one of the things is, for example, a fruit of ola, a fruit for the first 3 years when it grows, even in America, not just in Israel. This is one of the only mitzvot regarding fruits and vegetables that we also keep outside of Israel. The rest, terumot, maasot, only in Eretz Israel, shnat shmita, only in Eretz Israel. But when it comes to orla, for the first 3 years, the fruit is forbidden to enjoy. So if I have a fruit tree like that in my garden that's 2 years old and there's a fruit on it, the fruits on Shabbat, even if it fell off before Shabbat, it is muktzeh. And it is forbidden to enjoy it even for the animal, all right? Or if the fruit fell off on Shabbat, the tree is already 5 years old, but the fruit fell off on Shabbat. It's a fruit. It's edible, right? The answer is no. Because it fell off on Shabbat, it is a muktzeh. Anybody remember what the muktzeh is called? Eitan, I'm sure you'll remember this one. Fruit.
Nolad.
Oh, what a group we have here. Chazak u'baruch. Nolad, exactly. So since it's nolad, it's a muktzeh. Then even though you could say it's food, then my animal could eat it. No, that the only time we say any food that could be eaten by an animal is not muktzeh is food that is allowed. But foods that are not allowed would be something that is nolad, something that is orla. Another case that is brought down is if a goy hunted a rabbit, let's say, on Shabbat, and now he wants to bring it to my dog. Whatever. Let's paint that situation. Since it was done in an isur of hunting on Shabbat for me, then my animal cannot enjoy that as well. But other than that, almost anything that you can imagine that an animal will eat, and it can't just be an animal that is in Africa. Oh, in Africa, like today I heard Rav Budbud, the son-in-law, they give an example. There's an animal, I don't know what it's called in English. In Hebrew, it's called a nimiyah. It's an animal that eats glass. Heard of that animal? Maybe some of you know what it's called in English. There's an animal that eats glass. So if I have broken glass on the floor in my house on Shabbat, would I say, listen, it's not muktzeh because there's an animal in the zoo somewhere in Africa that would eat this? No, it has to be that technically the animal would be able to come and eat it in my house. So if it's outside of my town, it's not relevant, right? But other reasons why maybe you will be allowed to move around glass on Shabbat if it's dangerous, but I'm reminding you that the movement that I'm talking about is with your hands. But if you have a situation where you don't know what to do, always with your body parts, it would be allowed to move it. So you can kick it away, no matter what type of muktzeh it is. Using your leg or your elbow is always fine to move stuff around. Remember that as well. Okay, now to a very important topic regarding Yalkut Shabbat. This topic is called Melacha She'ina צריכה לגופה. What does that mean? When I do something that is forbidden on Shabbat, but I don't really have need for the forbidden thing. For example, well, I'll teach you what a melacha she'tzricha legufa is, and from there you'll learn the opposite. Any kibui, any turning off of a light, turning off of a flame, turning off of whatever it is, electric thing, is called a melacha. I'm doing something that is forbidden, but it's always going to be the level of dirabanan. It's not going to have the level of Torah. And this is important. You could say, what do you mean? What does it matter to me if it's from Chachamim or from the Torah? Either way, it's forbidden. It's true that it's forbidden. But when it's from the Torah, we're much more strict. But when it's from Chachamim, there's certain times where you're still allowed to do it. B'shinui, if there's tsar, if you have if you're saddened by something. We'll give an example soon. If there's light that was forgotten on in the room and there's a chole in the room that needs to sleep. So by turning off the light, it's only Isur de Rabbanah. So there's a way to do that for him. Okay, we'll touch that. But the only time that if I turn off something, it would be Isur from the Torah. You know what? Anybody know? The only time when you turn off something, it's Isur Torah, is if when you're turning off a fire, but not because you just want to get rid of the fire, because you want to make coals. So you want to use it. So that would be a melacha. That would be an action that you're doing for use. I'm turning off because I want to use the coals. I want to save them. That would be from the Torah. But most of the times, whenever you're turning off something, you don't have any use that you're looking for right now. You just want to get rid of the current situation. And that's why all the kibuim, anything that you turn off on Shabbat, you know that? It's going to be de Rabbanan. Okay? So, because it's a melacha, she'ina tzricha legufah. For example, if I now have an animal, a bee that is bothering me, all right, and I capture it and I hunt it on Shabbat, that's forbidden. But the level of what I did right now is not going to be a Isur Torah. It's not going to be forbidden from the Torah. Why? Because I don't want to save this bee for later to make honey. Or let's say it's a fly. A bee, you could say maybe it could give me honey. Yeah, a fly. But I need the fly. I'm not trying to actually capture the fly. I'm just trying to catch it so it stops bothering me. So even though it's Isur Tzeidah is from the Torah, but the tzeidah of something that you're not planning on keeping, it's not like when I hunt a snake, I want it, I want to take its skin, or maybe a goy wants to eat his meat. When you hunt a fly, you don't want that. That's why it lowers the level from Torah forbidden to Chachamim forbidden. Iga was asking me the other day, Ziv, is there a criteria of what stuff are from the Torah and what stuff are from Chachamim? And I told him it's very hard to answer that because in the same melacha, for example, trapping, like we just learned right now, or hunting, the same melacha that you can do, it could be from the Torah or it could be from Chachamim. It depends how you did it. If you need the item, if you don't need the item. So Chot of Shabbat are very, very complicated. There's a reason why the Chafetz Chaim writes in his introduction that if you did not learn Chot Shabbat a few times properly, it's almost for sure that we are not keeping Shabbat. Today, who can say that he keeps Shabbat? We don't know enough the halachot. I'm saying about myself. The best that we could do is try. So that's what we're doing now, Baruch Hashem. I'm very happy that we got to the topic.
Ziv,
Yes.
you're mentioning about trapping like flies and stuff. So I don't know if they have them in Israel, but in New York at least, we have these fireflies that come out in the summertime.
I've
Like
seen them.
you've seen them.
Mhm.
So like kids, they like to go and like catch it in a cup and stuff like that. Would that be mutar?
No. Either way, it's a sur.
Ah,
Either way, it's a sin. All I'm saying is there's a difference between trapping it from the Torah or from Chachamim, right? So what transgression did you go upon when you did this? From the Torah or from Chachamim? So whenever you don't need the item, it's only a issur from Chachamim. Either way, it's a issur. The only time that it matters
yeah,
to us, if it was, let's say there's a certain situation that we are allowed to transgress a issur from Chachamim because there's someone sick or because there's tzorech rabim, there's a need for
got it.
people, or
Yeah.
because tzorech mitzvah. Then there, if you do it in trei d'Rabbanan, like if you do it b'shinui, with a change, so I cannot say that there's zero difference between Chachamim and Torah. They're both forbidden, but in certain cases, we're more lenient when it comes to Chachamim. We're going to get to these cases, guys. But yeah, that would be, so if you're just trapping it because it's bothering you, it would be from Chachamim. But if the reason they're trapping it is for it itself, so that it lights for them and they need it, then I would say that then it might be going over Isul Torah over here. Yeah, so definitely no trapping. No trapping.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now what happens? So I touched upon this example before, but if someone is sick, and I'm not talking, God forbid, about someone that is sick in danger, that's pikuach nefesh. Whenever pikuach nefesh is in the picture, or even safek, even a doubt if there's pikuach nefesh, there's no questions asked. We do whatever he wants. But what if it's a chole, someone that's not feeling well and just needs to rest, he's in bed, all right? Or, for halachic reasons, any child in the age of under 5, 6 years old, halachically is considered a chole. That's the halacha. When we use this, we rely on this. For example, if there's a problem with electricity, right? In Israel, let's say that the Jews come to fix the electricity on Shabbat because the whole city went down, and now you have Jews working on Shabbat, turning on the electricity. So how am I allowed to enjoy this? Jews fix the electricity on Shabbat. So we rely on the opinion that in this city, there's a hospital or there's some sort of medical giving place that is providing for Jews. And if they don't do that, then that Jew is going to be in danger. So we say, since they did that for a reason that is allowed, that for that Jew, then we enjoy it on the way. All right. So there's chole, afilu she'en bo sakana, even someone that is sick, but he's not in danger. He's just not feeling well, or like the baby. I would be allowed. That's been the case. There's a light in his room and he can't sleep. He's not feeling well. So obviously I can't just come and turn off the light because I'm going to go over Isul de Rabbanan. But if I do it with a change, let's say if I do it with my elbow, some say even since he's sick, even you would allow to do it, directly. But the better way would be to do it with an elbow. So you're doing trei de Rabbanan. You're doing Isul de Rabbanan, which is just turning off. As we just learned, any turn off is Isul de Rabbanan. And I'm doing it with my elbow. So it's trei de Rabbanan. It's 2 de Rabbanan. Once you make it, you do the action and change, it's another level of de Rabbanan. Once you have 2 de Rabbanan, two, that's what it's called. It's called trei de Rabbanan. Then for certain reasons, it would be allowed. One of them is for someone that is sick. Again, if he's sick, some say even just 1 de Rabbanan would be enough. But if it's for a mitzvah, all right, or if it's for tzorech rabim, a lot of people are in need of this, okay? Or if it's bimkom tsar, there's a lot of tsar. Let's say someone kicked, there's in my home, now I was in the house in New York, but this happened to me in the same way. I didn't know the halacha back then, but on the floor, there's like a vacuum knob that you could kick it open and then it starts sucking, and you push to that area with the broom and it sucks it all in. But if you don't notice it, you could turn that on Shabbat just by passing by with your leg. It happened to me, and now we're sitting on the Shabbat table, and we hear, ooh, the main vacuum of the house. What type of Shabbat is this? So much noise, right? So I didn't know the halacha at the time. So what I did is I walked to 54. I found the goy and I called him over and I asked him, to turn this off. But after learning the halacha, and as I said, you're always learning and understanding more, I learned what would be the isur if I turn off this vacuum on Shabbat? Would it be a isur from the Torah or from Chachamim? We just learned it today. Any turning off is a isur from Chachamim. Unless you're making coals, it's a isur from Chachamim. So that's one isur from Chachamim. So if I turn it off with a change, let's say with my elbow or something like that, it's going to be Terei D'Rabbanan. Terei D'Rabbanan, bimkom tsar, there's a tsar. We're sitting on the Shabbat table and this noise is really bothering us. So that would be makom tsar, sadness. That would be a good enough reason to turn it off. So theoretically, I didn't have to go call a goy. I just could have turned it off b'shinui. It's always better to get the goy, but if it's a lot of work or if he's not around, then that's when, the knowledge of
Steve,
the
question. Is it better to do it yourself or to let the katan do it if you have to turn off something?
There's no difference between you and a katan for that sense. If you tell me that better me or the goy, me and a change or a goy, better the goy. Right? The goy, it's always better that he does it. But between me or the katan, some say, don't ask the katan to do these things. It's bad education. If it's allowed for you and him. And if it's forbidden, it's also forbidden for him. If I go tell a little boy to do Chilul Shabbat for me, I can't enjoy that. Why do people get this confused? Because if you have a katan that is, let's say, 1, 2 years old, and he turned on or off the light on Shabbat, people are allowed to enjoy that light. But why? Because there was no thought process when the boy did it. He wasn't thinking, I want to turn on the light, I want to turn it off. He was just playing. He doesn't understand what's going on. So when he does that, then I'm allowed to enjoy it. But if I go and make him turn on the light or something like that, then there's a melechet machsheva, there's a machshava, there's a thought into it, then it's forbidden. It's the same level for me or for him. So don't give it to the little boy. You should do it yourself. If it is allowed, do it with a change. But a boy is obligated just like you. All right. Okay, so we're going to hold a little bit over here with the topics of Muktzeh. Again, it's going to...
Sorry, Steve, another question. You're saying it out to turn off. What about to turn on?
So turning on is a little bit more complicated because if it's an LED light, there's a machloket, but most poskim hold that turning on an LED light is from Chachamim because it's not a real fire. There's not a flame in there. But if it's an actual light, like the old-fashioned lights, then it's already a Isur Torah.
So if it's an LED and you do it b'shinui, and let's say you need the lights because you have guests, you have people, there's no light, the kids shut off the light, so are you allowed to do it?
No. But the fact that you need the light because guests are here is not enough. It's not considered tzar. You know what I mean?
It is tsar because there is like 100 people. You guys want to learn Torah, or we want to pray, or I don't know. You have guests, and there is no lights.
So learning Torah is something important. So it's rabim, something that's done for a lot of people. All right, this would be much better to do with a goy, but just know that but something that is done through a goy would be much easier than yourself. Turning on a light, you should know that some poskim hold that it's a isur from the Torah. Even though I don't,
no matter what,
I hold that LED. My understanding and the rabbis that I follow, I hold that LED is from Chachamim, but know that a lot of poskim still hold that any light that you turn on, it doesn't have to be a fire. Once it's a light that you turn on, it's from Deoraita. So it's a little bit more complicated to turn on than to turn off. Okay? Because theoretically, if you can't eat in the dark, yeah, you're a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not tzar like there's a noise. It's not tzar like someone trying to sleep and the light is in his eyes and he can't sleep. You can eat in the dark. Have you ever eaten in the dark? You're on a trip, you're eating on a mountain. You cannot eat. You can eat. It's not so comfortable, but it can be done, okay? So it's hard to say that you would be allowed to turn on the light when you have a lot of guests. That's not a good enough reason. You eat in the dark. People used to do it like that. That's not a good enough reason. There are other reasons that you could find, okay? But that's not a good enough reason. So remember the criteria. If someone is choleh, but again, you're turning on a light, so you have to also make sure that it's an LED. I used to think that all the lights in my fridge were LEDs because it was a new fridge. But I discovered that no, it had a bunch of lights, and some of them were actually Noat Libun, that the light that has a flame. And that's a problem because what do we say? We say that if someone forgot the lights on in the fridge, is he allowed to open it and close it on Shabbat? We say, yeah, you're allowed to, because when you open it, I don't mean for the light to turn on. And according to the Sephardim, if I don't mean for it to turn on, it just happens on the way. It's called psik reshet. And if it's derabanan, then I would be allowed. But if it's deoraita, if the flame is turning on, then everybody holds it, that's deoraita. Then you can't open that fridge on Shabbat. So thank God I switched all the lights in my fridge to LEDs now, so that if anything would ever happen like that, I could think. Hopefully, we always remember to turn off before Shabbat. But it's not so simple with turning on. That's what I'm saying. All right. Now, what happens? You're walking on Middle Neck Road, and all of a sudden you see a wallet. And this wallet looks like a serious wallet full with good things. What am I allowed to do on Shabbat? I want to keep the money, but the wallet is Muktzeh. So anybody have an idea? What can be done?
Kick it home.
There you go. Kick it to the side, kick it to somewhere that no one could find it. All right. Now, if there's a iruv in the city, then you would be allowed to kick it home because it's considered one territory. But if there's no iruv, you know what iruv is, right? Like the string that they put around the city to turn it into one entity. But if you're in France right now or Italy, where they don't have necessarily an iruv on Shabbat, and you found that wallet, so kicking it from Reshut HaRabim, from the general territory, into your room, that would be moving something from one territory to the other. Mireshut HaRabim, Reshut HaYachid, that would be forbidden. So if it's in a place that doesn't have a iruv, you can't kick it to your house. Kick it to a place behind a tree somewhere that no one will find. It's still in the Reshut HaRabim, and Motzei Shabbat, go back. All right? If you have the Hoseleh, stay next to it until Motzei Shabbat, depending how valuable it is. What do you see in there? But most places that we go, like in Great Neck as well, there's an iruv, then we would even be allowed to kick it all the way home.
Ziv, didn't you say we can't do things that are derabanan, that we're deriving some sort of benefit from, like you said with the coals? It's not the same as the wallet?
No, but what am I doing here? I'm kicking with my leg, which means no matter what the situation is, anything that I come across on Shabbat, I'm allowed to move it with my leg. That's kind of call it a loophole. The tiltul with a body part, that's not a problem. So you're right that there's a problem of doing something to it, but it's not considered you're doing something when you kick it with your leg. That's like a kind of a loophole. So again, any muktzeh, no matter what situation you're in, movement with the leg is always allowed. All the rules don't apply to that.
Thank you.
All right.
Steve, sorry, it's better to move it with the part of your body or with something else, a stick or something that you can hold.
So I'll remind you what we learned last week. We learned that there are two ways to move things, either with a stick or with your body. Which one is easier? It's much more lenient when you move it with a leg or with a body part. Then you could move any muktzeh that you want. But if you want to move it with something else, then you cannot move it for it itself. Meaning if I'm moving the wallet because I want to save the wallet, I cannot move it with a broom because I'm moving the wallet for itself. But if I'm pulling the talit out and I'm moving the tefillin, but I don't want the tefillin, I want the talit, then I'm moving the tefillin with something else, with a talit, but what I want is the talit. That's when you're allowed to move something with something else. That's equivalent to the broom. When I'm moving something, but I don't want the muktzeh, I just want something else, then I'm allowed to move it with a broom. But the wallet, I would not be allowed to move it with a broom. I would only be allowed to move it with my leg or with a body part. Understand the difference?
Yes.
There's two different tiltulim, with a body part or with another item. Let's say through a bag or through something else. So with an item, it's a little harder. With your body part, any muktzeh is fine to move. All right. So we are down now to a new topic called Dinei Tefillah Be'erev Shabbat, the halachot of the Tefillah, Siman Reish Samech Zayin 267. So we may have touched this in the past, but it's worth now to go into it in depth. When do we accept Shabbat? When does that happen? Well, we've already learned that according to the Sephardi women, we do not accept Shabbat upon candlelight. So when does it happen? When is the moment where you cannot go back anymore? Unless you verbalized, I'm accepting Shabbat, then there's no questions asked. But there's certain parts of the tefillah, that's the discussion that we're going to have right now, that automatically, no matter what kavanah you have, if that happened, you accepted Shabbat. So there are a few points like that. Let's start with the most simple one. According to Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, he holds that once you say Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat Tov Leodot LaHashem, boom, when those words came out of your mouth, you accepted Shabbat. You cannot say, it's not Shkia yet, I forgot something, I'm ready to go turn it off. You said Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, no matter what, you accepted it. However, according to the Kabbalah, according to the Ari HaKadosh, he says that even before Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, you already accepted Shabbat. And that is when you sang L'chadadi, actually right before Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, when you sang L'chadadi, and the last part, Bo'i Kala, which means come my bride, that's a metaphor, referring to the Shabbat. Once you said, come my bride, Bo'i Kala, boom, that brought the Shabbat upon it. But the Ben Ish Chai, Rabbi Yosef Chaim in Baghdad, he explains how could it be that they're talking about different points of when we accept Shabbat. So he says, actually, this is how it works. Our neshama, or our soul, has a few different levels. There's what's called nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Right? This is not part of the pshat learning. This is more Kabbalah, but according to the Kabbalah, that's why sometimes in Tehillim, David HaMelech uses the word nafshi, and sometimes it says neshama. It sounds like it's all the same. It's all the soul. It's not all the same. There's a difference between them. What is it? These are deep things. But basically, the neshama has a few different levels. The lowest one is nefesh. A higher one than that would be ruach, which translates as spirit. And the highest of them would be neshama. So those three are in us. And says the Ben Ish Chai that when you said Bo'i Kala, you accepted Shabbat, but what in your neshama, what in your soul accepted Shabbat? The lowest level, which is the nefesh. And then when you said Baruch et Hashem HaMevorach, Baruch Hashem HaMevorach L'olam va'ed, you accepted the level called Ruach, the spirit. And in Hashkivenu Avinu L'Shalom V'Amidenu Malkenu L'Chaim Tovim U'Shalom, when we say the word Ufros, I don't know if you noticed, but some people, they stand up when they say Ufros on Friday night. And if you look in the Siddur, I wonder if the Mashari Siddur says that. If anyone has it next to you, please check it. Does it say stand up over here? But a lot of Siddurim will tell you that when you say the words Ufros, stand up, because this is when you get the Tosefet Neshama. The Neshama is getting some sort of elevation. It gets it in 3 stages. We just mentioned 2. The third stage, the highest stage, is in Ashkivenu, where the Neshama gets a Tosefet Neshama, an added Neshama, the highest level, the third level of them all. Practically for us, if we want to be careful and we want to follow according to the Mekubalim, once we said Bo'i Kala, we accept the Shabbat, no going backwards. If we don't want to follow the Mekubalim and we just want to follow the simple interpretation of the Shulchan Aruch, then when we said Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, we accepted Shabbat. Either way, that's the beginning point. What are the levels after that? According to the Ben Ish Chai in Baruch Hu, there's another level, a higher level of acceptance. And on the third level, then that's when they say that on Shabbat, you get an extra neshama to sefer. So that's what the Ben Ish Chai is explaining. That extra thing that it comes into you, it comes in 3 stages, 1, 2, and 3. So according to him, from the first stage that something already came into you, you accepted Shabbat. Steve, I see you're checking. Does it say anything about that?
You're talking about in the Arvit when it says Ashkivenu and then there's Ufros?
Yes. Here, I'm going to open a Siddur that I have.
It says stand, yes.
It says stand. It doesn't say why by any chance, huh?
No, it doesn't say, yeah. See.
I'm checking here. Here.
Okay,
This is a Siddur called Od Yosef Chai by the Ben Ish Chai. And in Hashkivenu he says Ufros. In the word Ufros, he says here, Be'omro Ufros alenu, while saying Ufros, Yeh omed, stand up, Ve'yechaven lekabel tosefet neshama. And he should have in mind that he's receiving now an added neshama.
Oh.
I think our Siddur has that at the end of L'chad Odi. Steve, if you
Oh,
Check on the
Oh, it's
page
on the
before.
Ashkenaz. In the Ashkenaz, it says it does say stand actually.
No, but look at the Lecha Dodi. I think it talks about getting the second neshama in the Lecha Dodi.
Here, I'm in this Ben Ish Chai Sidur, and Lecha Dodi and Boy Kala, he says, have in mind that when you say the Boy Kala, you're getting the Tosefet Nefesh, the lowest level of the soul. Let's see.
there's no
Baruch
stand.
he says.
No.
No, in Baruch Hu, he doesn't say here you should have in mind. Oh,
It
yeah.
doesn't say it in the Hanadi.
He says, while saying the Kaddish right before Baruch Hu, have in mind that you're accepting the level of the Ruach. Either way, you see that that's the system of the Ben Ish Chai, that there are 3 levels of the Neshama that come into us. Okay, maybe we'll develop this a little more next time, but just bottom line, according to the Pshat, we accept Shabbat and Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, no going back. When we say the Kabbalah, the first level is already coming in Boy Kala. We'll continue from here next time, Rabotai. Yizkor le'mitzvot, chazak u'baruch.
Thank you.
Baruch.
Baruch.
Okay.